After uprooting her life on the West Coast to move to the East Coast to support her family and then staying to help her mother regain her health post COVID, my guest today is going to tell you she nearly lost her mind. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Welcome to the show, Lauren. Did you find your mind?
Thank you so much. I have found it. I have found it in Mexico.
In Mexico. Well, at least it was somewhere. At least it was somewhere. I am delighted to welcome you to the show. I was just on your show a couple of weeks ago. We've been trading shows back and forth. I like to call you the hostess with the mostest. I am delighted that you're on today. You are the host of Good Day Orange County TV, and you've been doing that for years, right? And when you moved over to the East Coast and are still there, you changed the way you did your show, right?
Well, I did. The studio closed. Everybody changed, right? The world changed. So the studio was closed. The studio is in Laguna Woods Village and everything was closed. I moved to the East Coast and we all went to Zoom and went fully remote. And the beauty is that now my guest list includes people from all over the globe. I'm not limited to people who are willing to drive the 405 to get to me.
Exactly. And I think I drove the 5 or the 405 to get you. If you're just tuning in right now, we are talking to Lauren Solomon. And if you have something you want to ask her, make sure you put it in the comments. We will put it up there that she can answer. Yes, everything changed. I mean, everything changed, but you pivoted. And in pivoting, it allowed you to continue doing what you do, right? Because you were busy on the East Coast losing your mind. And I say that tongue in cheek because this is all about taking care of our folks and it's all about caregiving and it's all about staying healthy. And you and I have very similar stories. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we control, if we can, keeping our mental health sane when we're caregivers and when everything around us appears to be, I don't know, not the same?
Falling apart.
Falling apart, right? So let's talk about how this happened. You packed up, right? And you literally, I mean, you took everything, you moved across the country to where it's cold because you were in Southern California, in San Diego area, it was, or Dana, Laguna, I guess, area. Beautiful, right?
Right.
Beautiful, warm, sunny, and the whole thing, and you moved to the East Coast. And I love that you did that. I love that you did that because at the end of the day, our parents raised us, they borned us, they raised us, they were there for us, they took care of us, and we're there for them, right?
Well, that was the story. I mean, at least that's the story I told people. But really, it started. My dog and I were working in Utah, and that was when everything shut down. It was a Friday. My brother called and said, "Hey, kids are home alone." At that time, he had two small kids, and his wife and he are both doctors. They had to keep working. And he said, "Mom and Dad, who are in their 80s, are no longer Plan B. Welcome to COVID. What's on your calendar?" And we literally never went home. I got literally fitted for a hazmat suit from the hotel because nobody knew what was going on. And
I didn't know
my
that.
dog and I we flew to Washington with the suitcases that we had. I had one suitcase for her, and what we had been in Utah for 10 days for work. And fortunately, she was a free range flyer. And so we got on the plane. Instead of going back to Orange County, we were living in Newport Beach, paradise, in other words. And we wound up flying to Washington, D.C. And then we actually didn't go home for over a year. And that was what started. So my parents, who live 15 minutes from my brother, were always, the drivers and the babysitters and the on-call people. That was just no longer an option. So a year later, when I realized that my mom was not going to make an easy comeback from the first year of COVID, I found an apartment in their building, actually, so that I could get to them. To your point, Karen, they have weather on the East Coast. We didn't at the time have weather on the West Coast.
Right.
So I had to think, what if I have to, she was falling a lot. And what if I have to get to her? I can't have to go outside. And
Right.
so that was the pivotal decision, was to take a place close enough to them that I could be in my jammies and just run down the stairs and down the hall.
And that's
Um, and that's what I did.
So, if you're just tuning in right now, we're talking about Lauren Solomon's story, how she went from the West Coast to the East Coast in the middle of COVID and with her parents, taking care of her parents. Have you experienced something like that? If you're tuning in, let us know. Put it in the comments. If you have a question to ask Lauren, we've got quite a few people on right now. So, make sure you ask a question. Let's have some engagement. Let's have a conversation about this. So you have a saying that you like to say, and that is better living through friends, family, and pharmaceuticals. And I agree with you 100%. But how did you come up with that?
Well, I am the daughter of a pharmacist and the granddaughter of a pharmacist. So I spent a lot of summers working at Hoffman LaRoche. Pharmaceuticals are in our blood. Um, Interestingly enough, though, I was always the homeopathic girl, and I was the one who was the naturalist, and I never
Right.
wanted to go down that road, and I fought it. But the reality is, there's only so much your girlfriends can take,
Yeah.
and you don't want to push them beyond. But then you realize that your girlfriends are taking stuff too that you didn't know about.
Right, because we don't talk about this stuff, right? We don't talk about it.
Right.
And I think if you can say there was a blessing in COVID, I don't know if we can say that, but it brought people together in a way that we had never been together. And you're right, you don't want to wear out your girlfriends. You don't want to wear out, the other members of the family. You don't want to do any of that. So pharmaceuticals are next. And they work. I mean, they work.
Yep.
My husband likes to say better living through chemistry. He's a retired psychiatrist, and he also has suffered very serious health issues, and I am his caretaker. I'm very fortunate. My parents are older. They're 88 and 90, still working full time, but I don't live near them. My brothers live near them, and so they are effectively the caretakers, and it's unusual. Normally it's the female, right? It's normally the daughter that does this, but you have a brother who does it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel a little guilty that I'm here, but what are you going to do? Did you feel like, I mean, you were telling me you're in Mexico right now and you decided you're staying because they needed some help. Does that
Yeah.
does that rub on you, like, okay, should I go, should I stay? How do you make a decision like that?
Well, the first decision we made was a number of years ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago, when both of my parents had a health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
They were living in New Jersey, and my brother was living in the DC area. I was living in Newport Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved in with my parents. They each had a health crisis within 2 weeks of each other. And so I was there for 2 months working with both of them. One was in a hospital in New Jersey, one was in a hospital in Manhattan. Every day I would go back and forth. That was a little bit of insanity. My brother, to your point, he's a great teammate, and we're great pals, thank God, because he was commuting on the weekends. His wife, who is an angel on this planet, said, I'll take care of the kids, you take care of your family. She said, honestly, it could be my parents. So
Right.
who am I to say?
Right.
And I appreciated that more than anything. So that's where this started, because we gave them an option. You can move near the grandkids and go be full-time grandparents, or you can come to California. Weather's great. I travel 75% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You'll tool around, but you don't know anybody there.
Right. Right.
So they decided, they made the right decision. Then they used to come to me in the winters. They would come to Mexico for a month and come to me for a
There you
month and get out of the winter.
You were
That was
snowbird.
how this whole thing started.
Snowbird. That's
That
called
was how it
snowbird, right?
started.
Yeah. Got
Yeah.
it.
So at that point, and I said to my brother before they moved, are you sure this is going to be okay for you? He said, honestly, you've been the local sibling, because I was living in Manhattan most of my life. They were in New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw them a lot. He said, I haven't had time with them like you have, and I would like that time.
Wow.
So with that understanding, I
Yeah.
didn't have any guilt
Yeah.
initially.
Yeah.
and and I could drop in, because the beauty of working for myself has always been that I can work from anywhere. And they
Right.
used to call me parachute auntie, that I would literally just drop in when they needed me for a week and drop out, which is why I could only have a dog who could travel free range with me.
Right. Well, you have been working remote even before it was a thing, right? I mean, you could work from
Absolutely.
almost anywhere, as can I, and I totally get that. I'm laughing because Sue Ann said I may as well be the only child when it comes to caretaking. Brothers who? LOL. So Sue Ann, you're the only one. And do you think I'm just curious, and if you want to put an answer in there, do you think it's because you're the woman? You think that your brother just maybe you don't want to talk about it. Maybe your brother just doesn't have the capabilities, or maybe you didn't ask him. I don't know. Sometimes it comes down to, I need help. And that's the next thing that I think it's really important to talk about. You have to be able to ask for help. There's no shame.
Right. Well, and you have to know it's different when you're asking for help for yourself.
Right.
In this case, over the last year, so it turns out that moving out there did not hurt my business. I actually had probably one of my best years ever in 2020 because everybody was working remote.
Right.
2021 brought interesting new opportunities. 2022 brought me an amazing, amazing project on the East Coast, which I could not have accepted
Right.
if I had still been on the West. So, yes, there were blessings in all of this. And because, as I mentioned, the family had not lived in proximity for many, many years,
Right.
this was cool because I've got a now teenage niece and nephew, and my dog had her cousins, and there's a lot more love in the space. So all that was fine. But then last February, my mom had a stroke.
Mm.
While we were sitting talking, we were sitting talking, the three of us, she, my dad, and me, and she was talking to me, and all of a sudden, the only word she could say was dementia. It had nothing to do with our conversation.
Oh, wow.
And it was the only word she could say. And I looked at her. I quick called my brother, doctor, said, I think mom's having a stroke. He told me how to do the Cincinnati test. She was, in fact, having a stroke.
Mhm.
Immediately, 911, half a block from our house. They were there in 3 minutes. And she was in the hospital and in the scanner within 20 minutes because timing is everything. But
Right.
that was the first moment, right?
Right.
And then she seemed to be doing better. And in the summer, her cardiologist put her on a series of meds that it was one bad reaction, one worse reaction. Each was worse after the other. And in September, I thought we lost her. She collapsed in my arms. So, two incidents there where I am on the scene while this is happening. I'm grateful to be on the scene because time is of the essence. But my dad's 91.
Yeah.
My mom's 86. And my dad is amazing. He's like a miracle man.
Yeah.
And he does everything and doesn't take any drugs, nothing. My mother, on the other hand, had some stuff.
Right.
So, okay. But I could see at that moment, my dad having support was really critical.
Right.
And of course, we got the medicine stuff handled. We're chirping along. We
Right.
have her 86th birthday with all her cousins. And the next week, I get a call, and on the other end of the phone, I hear, "Mother, can you hear me?" And I literally put on slippers and run downstairs to find the emergency squad going into their apartment, my brother on his knees on the floor, and my mother in a pool of her own blood. So she had fallen. She had gotten her cane stuck between her feet or something. She had tripped over the cane, landed on her head on the cement floor. My dad had gone literally less than 10 seconds to the other room to turn the TV on for her.
Wow.
So all of this happened in a split second's
Right.
time, and we spent Thanksgiving week in the hospital with a traumatic head injury. Back to back. Every time I started to pop my head up, it was like whack-a-mole.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And I mean, I'm just feeling you right now. You think, what does this do to our mental health? How do you keep yourself sane besides the
So I
drugs?
walk the dog. I walk the dog.
You
I
walk the dog.
literally, I walk the dog. I play lots of lots of soft music. That helps the dog too. I mean, she's now a working dog, right? She knows that so the joke was I got her trained and registered legit support animal, emotional support animal. In fact, I was her emotional support human. Everybody knows it. And now she is my parents' emotional support animal. So she knows she's a working dog. She spends her days with them. She comes home to sleep sometimes. Sometimes she'll just say, I'm exhausted, I'm going to bed, and she puts herself to bed at their place. Um, you watch, you kind of have to work with what's in front of you. My biggest challenge was that I couldn't work. That on one hand, I was grateful that I didn't have a lot of work going on. On the other hand, I desperately needed to
Right.
have something going on that gave me structure. But the part that took me down was that I wondered if this was my forever now. Is
Oh my,
this what was
oh
going
my
to
gosh.
be?
So you're not alone, right? You are not alone when you say that, because even to this day, I will sometimes say, is this how it's going to be forever? And I
Mm-hmm.
need to then really have to rework that and say, I'm happy, I'm joyful, and turn it around. So if it is my
Right.
forever, it's okay. What do you, I mean, that's a scary thought, right? Is this going to be my life?
Is this going to be my forever? And what happened when my mom had her stroke, within 10 days, I put on 10 pounds. Like my body just went into crisis mode, because at that time I also was in this big business project that we hadn't yet wrapped up. So I had 6 weeks left on the project and I was at the highest stress point there. So just when I thought I was at my peak stress, I took it a step further, and you think you can't handle it. And sometimes, honestly, you can't. And my body just went poof, we need more protection. And I was trying everything I knew to, bring down the inflammation and calm myself and stop
Right.
the cortisol dumping, which at night you have no control.
You know,
But this went on for months, and finally I found a therapist.
yeah.
I needed someone to guide me. And the gift of my therapist was that she has worked with people like me. And so you don't have resources
Right. On how to
to
do
handle what you're going through.
exactly. And are you
Said,
a private person? I mean, do you talk about what's going on? I mean, we're literally on live right now talking about it publicly, but generally in your life, do you walk around telling people what's going on in your personal life? I know I don't, and I'm going to
no, of
guess
course not.
you
And
don't.
I host a TV show. I host a TV show, but we don't talk about me.
Right. Exactly. Robin Saul says, Hey, Robin, good to have you on the show today. This is beautiful and such a gift for all of you. I've been through this with my grandmother and grandfather. These conversations are so needed for so many of us. Remembering we're not alone is important. Thank you. Thank you. Because we're not. I mean, we're not alone. So you obviously are working. You are still working, in between not working, in between taking care of your family. You've got projects that you're working on. Why do you continue? Is this just to keep you going? Why do you continue doing this?
Why do I keep doing what? Taking
We're
care of them?
no, not your. I know why you take care of your parents. Why, and I know why you're a caregiver. Why do you keep pursuing being a brand and image advisor? Do you look at yourself as your job? That defines you. I'm always interested. Do jobs define people, or do people define people? So do you continue to work because your job defined you?
So, no, I believe I continue to work because I love to work. I love my work. And I love the people I come in contact with. The one thing that stayed consistent through all of this was my hosting Good Day. That was really a lifesaver for me because it kept me in contact with amazing people. It gave me something that I could control and do it in my own time, and that was important. I think we all need to feel productive, and it's not that what I'm doing with my parents isn't productive, but there are other people, like to some degree I need to let my father control part of what they're going through. I need
Right.
to tell my brother when he needs to come in. I need to tell my niece and nephew, you need to come spend some time with them.
Right.
I mean, it's only because I'm hands on every day and I live so close. Like my sister in law, when I chose that apartment, my sister in law said, "Are you sure?" like, really? I get that you're moving to the area, but are you
Right.
sure you want to be in the building?
No, I get that.
And
I get that. So
yeah, she was real. It was very real. But I think number one, I appreciate you when you opened this. You said, "I'm grateful you did what you did." And I will never, it's like staying down here in Mexico. I mean, it sounds like, we're at a fabulous resort. Um, and jokingly, my brother said, "What? You're calling this taking the bullet for the team?" But then on the other hand, he heard my mother going off on the other end of the phone and said, "Okay, you're taking the bullet for the team this
okay, Chris, I'm chuckling. This is sister. Hi from Belgium, Karen, Lauren, and Sue Ann. When I was caring for my mother, my cat was my caretaker. I love it. Oh my God. How many of you listening and tuning in right now, your pets are your support. Your pets are your
time."
caretakers. We all, I mean, I have a dog and he's all over social media because he makes me smile and
Yeah,
he
right.
takes me out of that space of being sad, basically, of being sad. I don't know about you, Lauren. None of us until we get to that age, right? None of us until we get to the age of our parents and what's going on there know what it's like to be towards the end part of our life. We don't, because either you just die because you have an illness or something, or you get old and you die of old age. And so, one of the things I've done with my parents, and I've been very vocal about it, is I want them to talk to me about what it's like being them right now at this time in
Mhm.
their life, because it teaches me how to be. And I want to pass that on to my kids as well. I think that if we were better equipped, I think if we
Yeah,
were all better equipped to deal with death. Now, of course, I come from, I'm a cantor, I'm a retired cantor. I dealt with death almost every single day. I mean, I must have done thousands of funerals. And for me, I still don't deal well with death because it was death over there. And so for me right now, I
right.
am literally, thank you, Robin. I am literally learning how they are doing this. Are you learning from your parents right now?
I'd like to be able to say yes, but I'm not really sure. I I learned from my father. My father and I have always been closer.
Right,
Um, and I learned from him through his storytelling now. Like he'll say to me, the way you see mommy now, it's not really that different than the way she was before. We would go on vacation. She didn't go in the pool, or we would go out to dinner and she would start up conversations with anybody who walked by,
right.
and he's sharing things that I wouldn't normally know.
Hmm.
I mean, we vacationed as a family for a very long time, all of us, the four of us with my brother, sister-in-law, then added the kids. It's only recently that we haven't been taking these complete family vacations. But I realized that, um, you know, it's been different when they go alone. And
Right,
so now my dad and I are having these conversations, and also at home, because I struggle with some of her behavior. Is it cognitive dissonance? Is it failure?
right.
Is there something we should be paying attention to? And really, my father's just really realistic. He says, "Look, neither one of us expected to live this long." He
Yeah.
said, "So
But for you,
yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
kind
you,
of the lesson."
but for you and your brother, I'm sure you're saying how lucky are we to have our parents still. And I like to say, because again, I come from good stock. My parents are still working, both of them,
Yeah,
even in their
yeah.
old age. And I look up to that. And I think because of that, I am who I am today, which I don't think I was really aware of it until they got to this age that, I mean, I should be,
Mm,
we should all be aware. We come from our parents. We learn from our parents. That, but I don't think I really understood how much my parents have taught me just by being,
yeah.
just by doing. Where have you been or where do you want to go that inspires you or motivates you when you're not at home with your parents or sitting in Mexico? Do you have a desire you want to go?
So it's very interesting. Coming to Mexico really reminded me of how much I loved living in Southern California. There's an energy there that is very much in sync with my heart and my spirit, being close to the water, being able to end your day by walking on the beach. Um,
Right.
Literally, just and the resort we're in, I lived in Newport Bluffs, and it looks
Beautiful.
like this resort would be like Newport Bluffs if it grew a couple feet would be this resort
Yeah. So
if
it's
it
like
just got a
going
little
home.
bit bigger. So it does feel like coming home, which is interesting because I hadn't thought about that. I've been back to California a few times since for work, and for friend occasions and things like that. But I hadn't. I've been so busy being in the thick of doing what I'm doing
Right.
that I hadn't really thought about how it has impacted my energy, my spirit, and all that. And down here, I've kind of been reminded. So at some point I've always known that this is not, the DC area is not my last stop,
Right.
and that I will get back to that softer, gentler energy. I mean, I grew up on the East Coast, so I lived in New Jersey, I lived in Manhattan more of my life than anywhere else, and then Southern California, now back to DC. And I know that I can be very happy anywhere, but
Right.
energetically, I need to go to places like this to rejuvenate and get myself re-energized. The one thing I really do miss is travel, and I have friends. With COVID, we all kind of scattered.
Right.
There was a time when the core of my people were in Southern California. Now we're all over the world,
Right.
and so now I'm actually with my mom, and my dad feeling a little more confident in management, and also just my brother's life settling in a little bit. I will travel more again, and I'm working, so there is an energy of just being engaged with people from outside. And I think
Right.
that's the key to the question that you asked me earlier. Friends and family and pharmaceuticals are one subset. But having people to talk to every
Right.
day who have nothing to do with any of that,
Right.
I think is really important too.
I agree with you 100%, which leads me to the last question I want to ask you. And I actually want to ask our viewers as well, if you want to share with us. How do you want to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered well and as kind and loving. I've asked my niece and nephew, funny enough, I recently we were driving and they were in the back seat, and I said, "So, not in a gross, weird kind of way, but if I die, what will you remember most
Hmm.
about our time together?" And once they got over the weird question from crazy auntie, they were good with it. Um, and I could see in the rearview mirror, they kind of looked at each other, and then they looked back at me and they said, "All the amazing places you've taken us.
Oh,
Like every time you were here, we did cool stuff. Every time we came to you, we did all kinds of cool stuff. Um,
so
you
the
made stuff
experiences.
happen."
Yeah, the experiences.
Yeah,
And I think that is so cool because it's not a thing. It's not like you gave them something, a gift. It's the experiences that you gave them by all the places you took them. What a wonderful legacy to you,
yeah.
Lauren. Oh my gosh. That is so cool.
So I'm good. I'm good with that. I feel like I'm okay. And I want to drop in one little note because you talk about learning from your parents
Yeah.
now. My mother's brother died last January. He was 96.
Mm.
My father's an only child. His closest cousin died last year at 103, and her sister at 98 still plays bridge every day. So to say that I come from long-lived people,
Right.
and I don't think any of them grew up in a blue zone. I don't think any of them would know what the blue zones are,
Right.
but yes, I come from long-lived, good stock. My grandmother used to say, "Peasants never die. Good thing we're peasants." And
Well, okay. There's always a positive spin on everything. I love that. For those of you who want to know how you can stay in touch with Lauren, and also go check out her website at laurensolomon.com. What are they going to find there, Lauren, when they go over there?
They're going to find my journey, the story about me and what I've done, what I'm doing now. And if there's something in there that's interesting to you, then hop along, drop me a note, and let's be in contact.
I love that. And on LinkedIn, they would go to LS Image, Lauren Solomon Image. On Facebook, it's Lauren Solomon. And on Instagram, I like to say you're everywhere, LS Image as well. Any last thoughts for our audience who participated lovely today? Thank you guys. I really appreciate you joining in on the conversation. Any last minute thoughts for you?
I hope everyone has an opportunity to feel like you've contributed
Mm-hmm.
to an elder. I really do. I feel like the choices that you mentioned earlier, one of my best friend from the 7th grade, her mother and my mother had strokes within days of each other. 2 weeks later, her mother passed. My mother continued, as we see. And you don't know why. And there is no explanation in the end, but you realize that there is nothing there's nothing we can do to make it different than it's going to be, except for the time that we have right now. So I don't get mad.
Yeah.
I don't get frustrated. Maybe that's the Zoloft speaking. Maybe.
You heard it
But
here first.
you know what? I've learned what I need to be the kind of person I want to be in order to contribute to whatever time they have left and make it better. I really do wish everyone could kind of adopt that perspective
Yep.
when it is insanely frustrating and all you want to do is just strangle them then and there. But take a deep breath, go into the other room, pet your dog, pet your cat. Do
Yep.
not kick the cat. Do not kick the dog.
Do
Pet
not
the
kick
cat,
your
pet
mother
the
and
dog.
do not kick your father. Go in another room and take a breath. But you know what? We're laughing.
Exactly.
We're making a joke about this, but it's really, really good advice because sometimes, a lot of times, we're all in situations where what the best thing for us to do is just take a breath and remove ourselves, right? Because
Yeah.
we'll just leave it at that. Because I want to thank you for joining us today. I just love talking with you. I give you, as I said at the very beginning, I'm just so grateful that you did what you did, and you are such a good example for all of us. Um, Thank you for tuning in, everyone. You have a choice as to where you spend your time. You chose to spend it with Lauren and I. I am very grateful. I know that Lauren is grateful as well. Go
Thank you.
out, give somebody an awesome day, and we'll see you next time on Karen Glasser Live. Goodbye, everyone.